Okay, this is number 3 on your practice problem set. So go ahead and pause the video if you haven't already set it up. I set mine up, and I'm going to pick up with the questions asking us to find the point P that lies along the directed segment from M to N. So that's the same thing as saying, we said it this way in class, MP to PN has to be in the ratio of 1 to 3. So you might have been backwards with this. What's going to happen is P is going to be more down here rather than up there. It's not going to be 1 to 3. MP to PN is going to be 1 to 3. So I like to just make a random guess of where I'm going to put P. So I'm going to do that right around here. I just know that smaller piece, that one piece has to be smaller. So I'm going to guess for my P right there, and I'm going to label this as 1 and this as 3. And just to get it out of the way, we usually end up using that whole length. So let's go ahead and label that there are 4 parts total. Okay, from there, I'm going to go ahead and make my triangles. This one's more like the ones that we did in class. So when I make my first triangle, I know the big lengths, if that makes sense, to use that terminology, or I can find them. So I'm going to do some counting and or use my coordinates to get my change in x, which is the horizontal distance right here, is going to be the difference between my 2 x coordinates. And maybe you can picture from -5 over to 0 is 5, and I'm going 5 more. So that's going to be a total length of 10. And then my vertical distance I'm going to get from using my y coordinates. So 3 minus a -2 is giving me a +5. So, oops, that's going to be 5. And then I need to figure out what, I'm trying to figure out where P is. So I need to figure out one of 2 things. I can either start at N or M, and how far did I go over to get to P? I like to just do the little triangle down here. Okay, but it wouldn't be wrong if you had made a line over here and done a triangle there. You just have to remember which coordinate to go back to when you go to get your answer. So I'm going to use that little triangle there, and that's going to be my lengths that I'm looking for. I'll use A and B this time. To be consistent with my answer key, I'm going to use A here and B there. It really doesn't matter which one you use where. And let's go ahead and set up our proportions. So you should be getting the idea of we're comparing small triangle and big triangle here. So small triangle, I've got A, B, and then my other length is 1 for my ratio. And then for my big triangle length, that was my 10 here, corresponds with the A. And then the 5 corresponds with the B. Those are my verticals. And then my entire length here is 4 to the 1. That's where I'm going to use 4 instead of 3. And now I'm all set up to solve. So you might write them as separate proportions. Again, that's fine. I'm just putting them all out there. And then I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to start by doing A over 10 equals 1 over 4. And cross multiply that. So that's going to give me a 4A equals 10 times 1. A is going to be 10 divided by 4, which is 2.5. And then I'm going to cross multiply right here and get 4B equals 5, which means B is going to be 5 divided by 4, which is 1.25. Again, I'm not done. Those aren't my answers. My answers are going to be the coordinates of point P. And that's when I'm going to be done. So how am I going to get P? Well, I'm going to get P by starting at M, because I made this little triangle here. So I start at M, not N. So I'm going to start at M, and I went left and I went up. Okay, that's going to tell me if I'm adding or subtracting. So let's go one step at a time here. Starting at M means I'm starting at 5, -2. And then because I went to the left from there, that's going to be an X or Y, an X direction movement. I could go left or right. Left is negative, right is positive. So I went left A units. So that means I'm going to take this value right here and I'm going to subtract it. Subtracting because I went left. And then my B was my movement in the Y direction. I went up from M. So up or down are my choices. Up would be positive, down would be negative. So I'm going to add 1.25. That's going to give me a final answer of 5 minus 2.5 is a 2.5. Don't be mistaken there. That's not coming right from A. That's coming from the math I just did. And -2 plus 1.25 is a -0.75. Okay, that's my final answer. Hopefully that helps. Number 1 was very similar to that if you got stuck on number 1.